What is up, boys and girls? We're back. It is the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for August 8th. We had a good slate yesterday. We will get into the perfect lineups from yesterday's slate as well as the owners, then go over the projected ownership for pitchers and the pitchers themselves, followed by some stacks to consider. Before we get into it all, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos as it helps us out a ton to keep getting content out there to you guys for free. Also, come join us at LineStar, only $29.99 a month, and it gets you access to all that we offer, all of our tools for both DFS, and prop betting for all sports we cover. Best deal in DFS by a pretty large margin in my mind. All right, guys, now let's get into the fun here. Get me out of the way. We'll bring up this perfect lineup. So DraftKings perfect lineup had Gavin Williams and Freddie P. And, per normal, we didn't use all the salary on the perfect lineup. But we do got a three-man Milwaukee stack as they went nuts yesterday. Also, Pirate is in there versus Strider, who Strider just got beat up yesterday. And Pablo Reyes had himself a game at only 2,300. And obviously, the two bombs from Big Meat Pete got it done. So that was the perfect lineup. The winning lineup, we got Sandoval and Peralta. Peralta was really key. He was chalk, but he really got it done. As one of the things that I always kind of talk about on the show is when there's two super high-owned pitchers, generally don't like to pair them together, and that was exactly the case yesterday. You didn't want to have Peralta and Strider together, not only just because it was way too expensive, but because Strider failed. Usually, in that situation, one of the guys may not be optimal, so you don't really necessarily have to have them. All right, so more on the stack itself. We got 5-man Milwaukee stack. We got a 3-man Met stack. Classic 5-3. Got it done for Malphite Pad. And good lineup construction. A little bit contrarian. Milwaukee wasn't very high owned. Sandoval's not very high owned. And it got it done. So congrats to them. Now let's check out the FanDuel lineup here. Freddie P, 13 Ks will do that for you. 3-man Milwaukee stack, 2-man Mets got it done. And as far as the perfect lineup, or the winning lineup itself, Who's This got it done with, no surprise, Peralta, a 3-man Milwaukee stack. And they had, 2-man Milwaukee stack, and then Pete Alonso. For some reason, I read NYM as Milwaukee. So 2-man stack plus Pete Alonso and one-offs got it done for him. They had Reyes and Alonso and Frelek, which really got it done. If you have those three plus Peralta, you were in the upper echelon of the contest without a doubt, as Alonso's only 8%, Reyes is 4.5%, Frelak 7%. So very few people had those three together. Congrats to Who's This to get it done. He won 25K. And now let's get into today's slate. Let's get over to ownership and pitcher. So we do have 11 games on tap today. We have quite a few spots where the wind is blowing out, relatively hard. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, in New York, in Boston, all have pretty good hitting weather today. And then Arizona always just plays up to offense, and you have two good offensive teams there. So we have a pretty interesting slate. Things can really break a lot of different ways on this slate. Now let's get into the ownership. So Max Scherzer, highest owned pitcher, 42%, and I think he probably should be. Pretty much on everything I've seen, everybody has him as the highest projected pitcher today, and it's with good reason. He's in a good spot versus Oakland. The one thing we do have to bring up is he hasn't been great. 4.96 FIP over his last 5, FIP of 5 over his last 20. So it's not like he hasn't been great in just a short stretch. It's been a while that he hasn't been that great of a pitcher. Oakland strikes out a lot, and they're not that great versus righties. But Scherzer's allowing 60% fly balls, a decent amount of barrel balls. He's giving up some hard contact, and the ball's flying out of the park a decent amount. So wouldn't be that surprising to me if Scherzer is only able to put up, mid-20s in fantasy points. And at 10.8K, that might not get it done. He may be in the winning lineup just because so many people played him. But, there is absolutely a chance that he's not in that winning lineup today. So do not feel like you have to, follow the chalk here. Now, I like him. He's in a good spot, but you can absolutely get off of him as well. Pitching as a whole today is kind of weak, though. So that's why that Scherzer is getting so much love. All right, next we got Gilbert versus the Padres. Padres been hitting the ball pretty well lately, so it's kind of tough to want to pick on them, especially when Gilbert is allowing a 39% hard contact rate, 45% fly balls. Padres got some pop. They're hitting righties an ISO of 200, 340 WOBA. Very easily, Padres could get on Wilbert a little bit here. He hasn't been that great lately, 4.25 FIP over his last 5. So a situation, where he goes 5-6 innings, gives up 3-4 runs, has a handful of Ks is absolutely a possibility, and that's just probably not getting it done. Being higher owned versus the Padres, I don't love it. He also isn't doing great at home, 24% less fantasy points at home. LineStar projections not loving him. Next, we got Framber. He had a no-hitter last game, so he's obviously locked in last game. The one thing is he's 11K, and the combined K rate on him is only 22%. I don't think you need to get up there to pay that salary. For me, when I see a 22% combined K rate at 11K, I have a very, very hard time to getting there. Now, his K rate is a little lower than some guys, but he also pitches deeper into games than most. So that does make up for some of his lower K rate, but I don't think it's just going to be enough on this slate. Another thing we do need to bring up is he has struggled against Baltimore a little bit. Gave up 7 runs, 4 earned last season. Hitting 500 off him in 22 plate attempts. Now, that's a very, very small sample size, so don't take that, as gospel or anything like that. But there's reasons to be wary about Framber. Nonetheless, he's about as safe as it comes as far as a pitcher, even in a tough spot versus Baltimore. Also, this is another spot where winds are blowing out and temps relatively warm. Clark Schmidt versus the White Sox. Look, I love picking on the White Sox. I think this is a spot you probably can. LineStar is liking him for his salary. Not a ton of K upside, but he absolutely could get you, low mid-20s fantasy point production. And, be decent here. The one thing is that, he's not the greatest pitcher, and he hasn't been pitching that deep. I really worry about this where it has 68 pitches for over the last 5. So he won at 82 versus Houston, 96 versus Baltimore, 64, 92, and so this 9 is really mixing this up, which was probably a rain delay or an injury or something like that. But nonetheless, he still, I think you can only really, count on him to go 90 pitches or so, which, definitely hurts his upside. I don't mind going here. He's been decent just limited upside because of his K rate. Cutter Crawford. All right, so we got great hitting weather in Boston today. It's a very hitter-friendly park. Wind is blowing out. And, he's averaging quite a few less fantasy points at home. 76% less fantasy points while home. So with that, it does give me a little bit of a red flag here. He is allowing 48% fly balls. Would not be surprised with a couple of them going out with how hard the wind is and the nice weather. But all in all, he's been very good lately. Almost 27% K rate, 3.11 FIP over his last 5. Combined K rate's 22%. That's the same as Framber. He's just not going to pitch as deep into the game. But he's 7,600. Framber is 11K. Just be wary about this, where he has not been as good at home. Not, outside of Coors, it's not very, regular where people are worse at home. But could be something about the ballpark that just doesn't sit well for him. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think he is in a decent spot, but he is another guy that isn't pitching very deep into games. 78.8 pitches per game over his last 5. So upside limited once again. Yusei Kikuchi, this is a guy that, we've actually kind of liked, and Cleveland isn't that good versus lefties. Striking out 23%, only at 250 WOBA, under 100 ISO. I think you can absolutely go to Kikuchi. One thing is he's averaging 20% less fantasy points away. But dude has been pitching really well lately. 2.78 FIP, 24% K rate, 21% combined K rate at 8,200 is very decent. LineStar likes him. 20% projection at 8,200, 2.5 value. I think you got to be a little interested in Kikuchi today. Wade Miley's in a really good spot, but, he doesn't pitch that deep into games. And, I don't love it. The one thing I do have to say is that when he gets it going, he can strike some guys out. It's just not that often. We do, however, have almost a 27% combined K rate at 7K. So it's something you have to consider. The Colorado's just striking out a ton versus lefties, 30% K rate. So, they're striking out almost once an inning. Definitely makes Miley a little interesting. The next 3 guys we'll go over here are kind of lower owned guys that I am interested in. Grayson Rodriguez is one. He's been, since being up again, he's faced some good offenses and has been pretty good. I would expect that to continue. 3.95 FIP over his last 5, 24.5% K rate, 24% combined K rate. I think he's interesting even versus a good Houston offense. JP Sears. Waldichuk just took it to Texas, and JP Sears has been pitching really well lately. Big worry for me, though, is this FIP. FIP of 6, ERA almost, 2 1/3 lower. So he's likely been getting pretty lucky. He allows a lot of fly balls, but it's in Oakland, which doesn't play up very well to power. Another thing is, averaging, a lot less at home than he is away. Texas fairly good versus lefties as well. But, Sears is a little bit interesting. I don't love him, but I also don't mind taking a little swing on him. Giolito. I think Giolito should be higher owned than he is. It's versus the Giants. They're in decent offense, but, no world beater, and striking out at 22%. Giolito has been extremely inconsistent, but he can give you pretty high highs when he's on. And I think this could be a spot where he does decently here. He's still working back into form after the trade. He got crushed by Atlanta, but he usually bounces back from his bad games anyway, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Yes, he hasn't been great all season. 4.9 FIP over his last 25% K rate, but I think there is some upside. A worry for me is the fact that, his combined K rate is only 21% and he's 10K. However, this is one of those other guys where his K rate when he's on is dramatically higher than his averages. So if he's on today, he's low owned, he can really, be useful on this slate being low owned. So a definite possibility there. Rest of the low owned guys I don't care that much about. So we'll get into FanDuel here. All right, so FanDuel ownership, Scherzer, Giolito. Giolito's just too cheap on FanDuel. You got to consider him much more on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Framber, 10.8K, only 8% owned here. I would consider him on FanDuel much more than I would on DraftKings for a couple reasons. One, you get the quality start bonus, and, he's almost a lock for that game in, game out. So that really ups that median projection for him. And he's, in an okay spot here. Grayson Rodriguez is super cheap. Think you can consider him here. Outside of that, maybe Tanner Beebe here. We didn't talk about him on DraftKings, so we will now. But he's been pitching really well all season. 3.73 FIP, low 3s ERA, 24% K rate, 24% combined K rate, that is. And in an okay spot here versus the Blue Jays. Blue Jays are a good offense, but they can get beat and they have some tough games. So don't mind going to BB to be a little bit different here. And Kikuchi, he's much more expensive on FanDuel, but he's been pitching really well. And Cleveland's not great versus lefties, so I would say he is in consideration there. But and that'll do it. So I think, sum it up, I like Scherzer, I like Giolito, don't mind Valdez, like BB, like Kikuchi, like Grayson Rodriguez. Now let's get into some stacks. Oops. All right. Highest owned stacks, the Braves, as it should be. Keller hasn't been great lately. You got strong winds blowing out. Look, 6.2 FIP over his last 5. He's allowing, I think it was 37% hard contact, a lot of fly balls. And with the Braves, how much power they have and the wind blowing out, there is a significant home run chance for the Braves. So I think having, 2 or 3 of them or a full stack of them is probably a fairly good idea today. Cubs, I see that we're having 56% ownership here. I think it's going to be significantly less. But they're in a really good spot. Similar, it's like 15, 16 mile an hour winds out in New York, and Carrasco isn't that great of a pitcher. So I think the Cubs are very interesting, especially because they've been hot lately. Dodgers. Paft has been a big-time prospect. He has a high K rate in the minors. K rate's been meh so far in the majors, but he does give up some hard contacts, so Dodgers are definitely interesting. Royals are a little interesting. Cutter Crawford has been good lately, but he's by no means, an elite pitcher, and he's limited. He doesn't go that deep into the game, so wouldn't be surprising to get to that Boston bullpen a little bit, and Royals be able to put up some runs. Great hitting weather today in Boston as well. Touki Toussaint, it's only a matter of time till he gets really blown up. I just don't think he's that good of a pitcher, so Yankees do make some interesting choices there. All right, Houston Astros, Grayson Rodriguez. Grayson Rodriguez got crushed early in the season, went down to the minors, got back up, and he's been good since. Now, I do think our projection system is weighting what he did earlier in the season, probably a little bit too much. I personally don't have a ton of interest in the Astros today, but they're a very good hitting team and they're low owned, so I get it. I get why people want to go there. Braves, obviously, we talked about that one. Rangers, they're a daily consideration, especially when you have that poor Oakland bullpen. Sears, a FIP of 6. His ERA is way lower, so I think he's getting lucky, and there's probably going to be a game soon where he does get blown up. Talked about the Cubs already. Milwaukee's been hitting, and Freeland just is not that great of a pitcher. He lets a lot of guys on base, and that can be very detrimental to this Milwaukee team that, has a bunch of guys that are hitting right now, so they are definitely a little interesting. All right, value-wise, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's very interesting. Has the same hitting weather as the Braves. Yanni Chirios is just not that good, so it makes a lot of sense to go there. The Mets, Taillon, he really hasn't been good for most of the year. However, lately he has been a little bit better. Now, is he going to revert back to not being very good? He could. Good hitting weather in New York, and he's an away pitcher, so I don't mind going that at low ownership. And Mets have been hitting a little bit lately. Boston, really good hitting weather in Boston. They were chalked yesterday and didn't really do much except for Reyes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go a little under-owned today, but they're definitely a little interesting. Baltimore, nobody's going to go there. It's a good offense. I don't love it. Would not be surprised, though, if Framber came back to earth a little bit with some regression after a no-hitter. And ceiling-wise, all the usual suspects, Braves, Houston's, Cubs, all are decent picks and can definitely get it done. Padres are definitely a decent ceiling option as well, and Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are probably the team that's going to go overlooked the most as far as the teams that are very good offenses and more expensive stacks. So that'll do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Let's make some money, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Come join us at LineStar. All the good stuff. I'll see you guys. Bye.